Hey there, hello there, it's Jeff again with my third Wrestlemania Good, Bad, and Ugly video. Where we left off is Wrestlemania 17 in Houston, Texas at the Astrodome. The good part of Wrestlemania 17 was when Vince took on Shane in that street fight match. Now, of course, there was a storyline between these two before, of course, WCW closed its doors just the Monday prior to this WrestleMania. As you know, WCW was, of course, Vince's competition back in the year, like for 5 years, and the fact of the matter is WCW had some issues with some kind of merger with Time Warner AOL merging, getting Turner's stuff, and then actually not wanting to have anything to do with wrestling, so WCW was forced to close its doors, and Shane bought WCW under Vince McMahon's nose. Of course, they decided to have a street fight, and Shane beats Vince, but the big moment was when Trish Stratus wheeled Linda McMahon, who was in a comatose state, if you will. Actually, lost my train of thought, but anyway, Trish wheeled her out, and Steph actually was brawling with Trish, and then Vince decided to use his comatose wife, Linda, to see what he's going to do to Shane and to Mankind, who was the guest referee. But Linda snapped out of it and hit Vince in the kiwis, and of course that made Shane win the match. The bad side of it was the Legends Rumble. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were some good legends like Hillbilly Jim, Iron Sheik, Tugboat, and Sergeant Slaughter and all them. And also Bobby the Brain Heenan and Gene Okerlund came back to the WWE after so many years away. Well, of course, WCW had been closing its doors and all that. The fact of the matter was that, you know, there were some terrible guys like Jim Cornette, Brother Love, Kim Chi, and the Gobbledygooker in this. Well, also the Goon as well. I mean, Iron Sheik did win, which was great. And of course, I like Bobby the Brain Heenan's quote that by the time Iron Sheik gets down to the ring, it'll be WrestleMania 38 or something like that. Or 28. Anyway, the ugly side. Now, it could have been shared. It should have been shared that Paul Heyman was actually the color commentator, unless like good old JR, in this WrestleMania, because Jerry the King Lawler walked out on the WWE after a issue with his wife, Stacy the Cat Carter, so he left the WWE, that. But anyway, when Stone Cold actually turned evil, and him and Vince McMahon were actually exchanging beers and all that, and shaking hands after Stone Cold's victory over The Rock at the main event of WrestleMania 17 for the WWE title. That was huge. But of course, Stone Cold would turn his back on Vince when Vince needed him the most by joining the alliance, the WCW, ECW wrestlers. I guess it was kind of expected because Vince did ruin Stone Cold's career many times. But when the WWE needed the most, Stone Cold got taken out flatly. I'm surprised Stone Cold didn't get fired exactly after the alliance lost. But I guess as a champion, you don't want to strip Stone Cold. So anyway, WrestleMania 18 from good old Toronto. The good of it was Hulk versus The Rock. Icon versus icon. A lot of people thought this would never happen because Hulk Hogan being out of wrestling for so long. In mid 2000, Hulk was forced out of WCW by Vince Russo. So anyway, Hulk wasn't really in wrestling shape. And then The Rock, you know, was his big star. All that. Of course, Vince decided to bring Hulk and his NWO cohorts around. We'll get to that later. But anyway. So, Hulk and Rock, well, there were two fan favorites, and opinions split 50-50 down the middle. Of course, Rock won. So, I remember reading in WWE magazine's Fantasy Warfare, and then Hulk versus The Rock. And of course, Hulk Hogan. Yeah, they wanted to see Hulk and Rock, and they did. Eventually. Now, what was strange is that a couple of weeks ago, I researched something on the XWF, because when I looked at when I was watching Hulk Hogan's DVD collection, there was an XWF match with him and Mr. Perfect. I'm like, XWF is, what the heck is that? So I did research, and it was actually made in 2001 after WCW closed the doors. That it was going to be a alternative for wrestling fan, like more family friendly than WWE was at that time. And of course, XWF failed because WWE signed some talents. They even signed Mr. Perfect back and Hulk Hogan. Well, Hulk Hogan and the NWO coming in. The bad was Stephanie being a bitch. Although I should have said that's the ugly side. But you know, the storyline between Triple H and Chris Jericho in 2002 was that Triple H, being a good guy, wanted to divorce Steph, a heel. All that, was tired of Steph being in his life and all that. And of course, Steph thought she was pregnant, but it was a fake, you know. So Triple H took his frustration out on Stephanie and Chris Jericho. So anyway, the Triple H Jericho main event was pretty good and all that. Steph was taken down a peg or two, and then a few weeks later, Steph lost a triple threat match that would have kept that if she had lost by pinfall, she was out of the WWE for good. Well, of course, that's not for certain. And the bad was, of course, when the NWO collapsed. Now, the NWO was brought in by Vince McMahon because during the Monday Night Raw after Survivor Series, when WWE beat WCW and ECW, that Paul Heyman was fired from his color commentating position and Jerry the King Lawler was brought back. Well, Jerry the King Lawler was in XWF and then he was brought back for this. Anyway, so Ric Flair, well, I was in Charlotte, North Carolina. Ric Flair announced that he bought Steph and Shane's shares in the Alliance. So he's now, well, the WWE share. So now he's co-owning with Vince. Of course, Vince decides to poison his own creation because of what Ric Flair's doing. And then he brings the NWO back. And of course, the NWO is mean and evil and all that. But anyway, after Hulk lost to The Rock, Hall and Nash decided to attack him. Well, Hall and Nash were involved in a match with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and they both lost. So anyway, Rock comes back to save Hogan and takes down the rest of the NWO. WrestleMania 19, I didn't really find anything good with it. Now, I know Hulk and Vince was a good match, and seeing Vince McMahon get bloodied by Hulk Hogan was great and all that, but, well, WrestleMania 19 was in Seattle. I mean, no offense to Jason Lundgren, but I just didn't see it. But anyway, the Hulk Vince angle was because Vince was tired of Hulk Hogan for some odd reason. Well, Hulk coming back in the WWE. I mean, Vince brought Hulk back, but after a few screw jobs, including Norway out in Montreal of all places, he decided to really get at Hulk's nerves and challenge him to a street fight because he wanted to get rid of Hulkamania. There was animosity between Vince and Hulk because of the steroid trial. Even though Hulk actually testified against Vince McMahon, he actually painted Vince as a sympathetic character, according to most people. But anyway, Hulk being Vince, even though Roddy Piper and Sylvain Grenier were trying to interfere on Vince's behalf. Of course, the angle didn't end because Hulk was paid to leave by Vince. Vince decided to get rid of Hulk for good, even though Hulk won the match. Of course, Hulk was Mr. America, and that ticked Vince off. And the ugly was Angle and Brock. Now, it was a good match, but Brock Lesnar, who never seems to do these kind of moves, I don't know why he did those moves, but he did a shooting star press and actually injured himself legitimately. And he still ended up winning the match because it was predetermined. I mean, it was like 97 when Stone Cold got his neck broken by Owen Hart for the Intercontinental Belt at SummerSlam. Owen should have definitely pinned him, but it was predetermined. So Owen basically had nothing to do, couldn't win the title. I mean, Brock would then leave the WWE the first time around because of his injuries. But it was kind of self-inflicted, if you know what I mean. So anyway, next on the list is WrestleMania 20 back in Madison Square Garden in New York. Ironically, I'm actually watching it because I'm trying to watch every WrestleMania in its entirety. But I've had some stuff I had to do, so I couldn't watch it all. And there was some, NCAA basketball and all that. I can't watch both at the same time. So anyway, WrestleMania 20, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, of course, it might be controversial, the good, but the fact of the matter is when Chris Benoit won the World Heavyweight title from Triple H and Shawn Michaels, well, at that time, Chris Benoit was a good guy that you can sympathize with. Of course, Benoit and Eddie Guerrero both won titles at WrestleMania 20. Actually, Eddie defended his title because he beat Brock Lesnar at No Way Out the next year. So anyway, Chris Benoit's win was huge, but of course, with the ramifications 3 years after that, you could argue that that's a bad thing. Anyway, the bad side, not the ugly side of WrestleMania 20 was, the backstage, the Hall of Fame was great, but there was a segment when Gene and Hart Finkel were kissing Fabulous Moolah and Mae Young. That was kind of strange how the backstage setup. And the ugly of WrestleMania 20 was Brock and Goldberg. Ironically, it's the next match on the WWE 20 pay-per-view that I'm watching. WrestleMania 20 I'm watching right now. But anyway, of course, Brock was mad at Stone Cold Steve Austin because he gave Goldberg a ticket and No Way Out. Of course, Goldberg ruined Brock's WWE title shot. Of course, Eddie Guerrero won. That was kind of why Benoit wanted to go for the heavyweight title instead of the WWE title, because he didn't want to face his buddy, Mr. Guerrero. So, of course, Brock and Goldberg both were going to leave WWE after that. I don't know why Goldberg would leave. I mean, he was a powerhouse in the WWE. That's saying something. And Brock Lesnar, well, he was a superstar and all that. He was dominating WWE, but he wanted to play football. That didn't work out, and then he went to MMA. So anyway, Brock and Goldberg, with Stone Cold being the guest referee, and it was pretty much a boring match, everyone decreed. So anyway, that was the worst. The WrestleMania 21 in Los Angeles at the Staples Center. The good was John Cena winning the title over JBL, because JBL had the title for a long time, since June of 2004, when he beat Eddie Guerrero at the Great American Bash, and he had to fight off a lot of title defenses, including The Undertaker at SummerSlam in Toronto, when he won by disqualification, because Undertaker got himself disqualified. Anyway, John Cena wins the 2005 Royal Rumble. Actually, no, he doesn't win the 2005 Royal Rumble. Batista wins it. But of course, at that time, well, of course, they both went at the same time. That was actually scripted, according to some people. But Batista won the Royal Rumble, and of course, he had to first pick who he wanted to face at the Royal Rumble, and he actually ended up facing Triple H. And of course, Triple H was jealous of Batista. So Cena was signed on against JBL for the WWE title, or SmackDown's title, if you want to call it that. And Cena won. That actually started off like 10 reigns for him as title champ. I don't know. Number 2, the bad, the good, the bad. The bad was the sumo match. Now, I'm kind of biased because, big sumo fan and all that. But Akebono Big Show, it kind of was disappointing that it was actually scripted and all that. I thought it would be a real-life sumo tournament and all that. They called it a one-day tournament. They called it a tournament. How can you have a tournament if there's only 2 people involved? And also, the ugly was actually Devarian Hussein trying to push his way into WrestleMania by beating up Eugene before Hulk Hogan comes in and destroys them. Of course, Devarian Hussein were controversial because of their Iranian heritage, their Middle Eastern heritage, and at that time, of course, 9/11 was fresh in people's minds. It still is, but ISIS is now the bigger threat. So Devarian Hussein, well, people hated them, and they left, of course, a year later. WrestleMania 22 was held in Chicago at the Allstate Arena, and Rey Mysterio winning the title. That was the best part of it, because Rey Mysterio was this underdog, and of course after Eddie Guerrero's death in 2005, he dedicated everything to Guerrero, of course, he won the Royal Rumble as the number 2 wrestler. Randy Orton actually cheated Ray out of his title opportunity, but Teddy Long decided to make it a triple threat between Orton, the heavyweight champ Kurt Angle at that time, and Rey Mysterio. And of course, Ray beat RKO with 619 and all that. That was big. A lot of people said that WWE was just exploiting Granato's death to give Ray a title. Anyway, the bad side of WrestleMania 22 was, well, I put it as my good, but with Ray winning the title, Vince losing. Of course, Vince's angle with Shawn Michaels, of course. He wanted Shawn to go back to the old Shawn Michaels, you know, the DX days, before his 4-year retirement from the ring and coming back as a born-again wrestler. Of course, Shawn Michaels had troubles with Vince McMahon, even suggesting that he should let the Bret Hart angle go. And of course, Jim Ross blatantly was cheering for Shawn Michaels over Vince McMahon, even though Jerry tried to tell him to be impartial. But obviously, if you know JR's story, is that JR was fired, even though he was supposed to go through colon surgery at the time, like legitimate surgery and all that, and Vince made fun of Jim Ross and all that. So basically, Jim Ross was going to do everything in his power to make sure Vince got what was given to him. And of course, Vince lost. Thank God for that. Vince actually tried to get Shawn to do the Kiss My Ass Club, but Shawn beat up Shane and forced Shane to kiss his father's ass. And of course, that led to DX joining up, as Triple H couldn't hide the fact that Vince was using Shawn for his own personal gain. And the ugly side of WrestleMania 22 was Foley against Edge. I mean, it was great and all that. Of course, it was an ECW type of match. Joey Styles commentating. Joey Styles should have just stuck to ECW. He had no business being in the WWE, and he said so himself in a shoot promo. But anyway, Foley Edge, it was okay, but, you know, both got hurt. WrestleMania 23 in Detroit at Ford Field. The goods was Vince, his head shaved. Of course, him and Trump were in a big battle. The billionaires, they both couldn't wrestle. So they both used a representative, Umaga for Vince and Lashley for Trump. Of course, Trump actually clotheslined Vince near the end of the match. Stone Cold was the guest referee, and of course Stone Cold got a few stunners on Umaga, and then Lashley beat Umaga. And Vince had to have his head shaved, which was funny. Well, of course, when you see Vince's ears, it's really funny. The bad side of WrestleMania 23 was, I guess, backstage politics and all that. I couldn't really find anything that was in the middle between, like, even John Cena's match. I think it was, yeah, against Shawn Michaels. I mean, it didn't, or Undertaker Batista, it just didn't get to me and all that. And anyway, the ugly side of it was the ECW Originals match. Like, they tried to put ECW into WrestleMania, but you can't do that. So anyway, at WrestleMania 24 in, oh my god, I'm losing my head here. WrestleMania 24. Oh, Orlando, of course. Was in Orlando, outdoors, for only the second time, I do believe, in WWE history. It was an outdoor stadium. And it seems to be a tradition ever since. The good side was, of course, Flair and HBK. The match, that was huge. Of course, HBK didn't want to beat Flair, but Flair begged him to, in a way. The bad side was when Kane won the ECW title in a squash match, about 10 seconds on Chavo Guerrero. Of course, Kane snuck up behind Chavo, who was the ECW champion, and beat him heavily and easily. And the ugly was Big Show against Money Mayweather. That should not have happened, because Big Show jobbed to a non-wrestler for the second time in 4 WrestleManias. Because of WrestleMania 21, he jobbed to Akibono, and then he jobbed to Money Mayweather. Anyway, the last video talking about 25 to 30 will be coming at you, so hopefully you'll watch it.